We're at the third stop in the Dragon Age series with Inquisition. I'm going to run through everything, how the story holds up, rank my favourite characters, rank the DLC, and talk about that open world gameplay.
Excellent.
Overall, I thought Inquisition was good. There are plenty of things I liked, and a few things I didn't like quite as much this time round.
A little of column A, a little of column B.
I like that a lot of the RPG elements lost in the previous game make a return. You can once again choose your race and background, and I like the tactical camera returns in combat. The story and characters are good, at times even great. I love how my choices in the previous games continue to influence events going forward, and I actually think Inquisition is a series at its best when it comes to representing and paying off your previous decisions.
Nice.
That said, the game also feels a little toned down. It's not quite as visceral as its predecessors, and the overall vibe feels slightly different. It's something I noticed, but it's not enough to really kick up a stink.
Stinking punsy cheesemongers.
While I criticised Dragon Age 2 for being confined to the city of Kirkwall and its surrounding areas, Inquisition swings to the opposite extreme. This time you get massive open world regions to explore. That sounds great on paper until you realise how much of it is filled with repetitive copy and paste busywork. I've genuinely lost count of how many constellation puzzles I've solved, camps I've claimed, shards I've collected, or these rifts I've closed.
That's enough doom and gloom.
So Dragon Age Inquisition picks up right where the previous game leaves off. Our new protagonist stumbles out of the fade with a classic case of amnesia.
Classic case of amnesia, is it?
Meanwhile, a giant rift has opened in the sky, demons are pouring out of it and spewing general chaos. Turns out, this mysterious mark in our hand gives us the superpower to close these rifts for good.
It seems you hold the key to our salvation.
Which is how we end up in charge of the entire Inquisition, and it kinda reminded me a little of the Awakening expansion and running Vigil's Keep, but a bit more in depth with new systems. So we got 3 primary advisors helping us run things. Liliana is our spy master, and I was genuinely happy to see her return after she became one of my favourite companions in Origins. There's also the newcomer, Josephine, our ambassador and diplomat, and Cullen, who's grown into a bit of a badass and manages military affairs. This time round I recognised Cullen from previous games, especially when he stood against his own corrupt leader under the Templars. This time I'm playing these games back to back, and it really helps those little connections shine.
I was recruited to the Inquisition in Kirkwall myself.
Where it gets interesting, I can designate my 3 advisors to tackle missions through the war table system. You assign your advisors across Thedas to handle political problems, gather intelligence, or the deploying of our military. It sounds cool in concept, and to be fair, there are some genuinely great moments of world building and lore hidden away in these missions. I can send Josephine to help familiar faces like King Alistair negotiate with the Orlesian Empress, and that's exactly the kind of thing that brings this world to life.
I'm going to make a terrible king, you have to know that.
But personally, I've seen my fill of these mission table systems for one lifetime. They kind of break the flow. Every so often you stop what you're doing and head back to base just to click a few buttons to start another mission timer. Some operations even take literal days to finish, which makes the whole thing feel like it came from a free-to-play mobile game.
You can't be serious.
In fact, it probably would have worked better if there was a mobile companion app to go alongside the game. I could have better managed the Inquisition while sitting on the toilet. But that's just not what I'm looking for in a single-player RPG.
You're shitting us.
And it's pretty goofy when you're dealing with a big bad destroyer of worlds or critical story moments. Then you get a little pop-up during an epic speech, letting you know that your mission is complete. Takes me out of it a little. Thanks, Josephine.
I am here for the anchor.
Before we really get into that big bad guy, quick pause. If you love RPGs, consider subscribing to Bytes or giving the video a like. I'm a bit of an indie game developer who covers RPGs, and I'm replaying the whole Final Fantasy series while ranking them. Thank you.
Come, let us return to Haven.
Speaking of the big bad, I was very happy to see the villain from Dragon Age 2's Legacy DLC, Corypheus, is back from the dead.
Corypheus is back. Oh, shit.
It hasn't actually been that long since I first played Inquisition at launch, but somehow I had completely forgotten a lot of the story beats. So seeing Corypheus return was a really nice surprise. This time he's got his own pet dragon, a new voice actor, and a much bigger role as the main threat facing the Inquisition. I thought it was kind of funny in 2 when we first encountered Corypheus, who just sounded like a confused old man who had literally just woken up.
What manner of speech is this? How long have I slumbered?
But he's definitely more threatening and badass this time round. He sounds like he's had his morning coffee and his voice has woken up.
Exalt the Elder One. the will that is Corypheus.
And honestly, I think he's sick as hell. After Dragon Age 2 focused more on a personal political conflict, it's nice to have a clear major antagonist driving the story forward this time. Turns out Corypheus isn't exactly thrilled that we've been running around closing all these rifts and shutting down his plans, and early on, he decides to pay us a visit. It's probably one of my favourite moments in the entire game. Depending on your choices, Corypheus either corrupts the Templars or the Mages before completely overwhelming the Inquisition and laying waste to our base.
You must die.
I think it's a fantastic way to establish Corypheus as a genuine threat. He's not waiting for us to come to him like the final boss in most games. He waltzes in and kicks our asses. We only escape by bringing down a landslide on top of our base. After our complete defeat, those left alive are forced to abandon our old home and relocate to Skyhold, which becomes the new headquarters for the Inquisition and where a new arc begins.
So this is where it begins.
So earlier I said, I think Inquisition is Dragon Age at its best when it comes to representing and paying off your previous decisions in the previous games. And honestly, it still blows my mind seeing random characters throughout the game casually mention the accomplishments and choices of my original Dragon Age Origins character. There's even a point where the Inquisition starts searching for the hero of Ferelden. They want him to lead the charge and lead the Inquisition, but they can't find him.
First, Liliana and I searched for the hero of Ferelden, but he had vanished.
And it's such a cool feeling as a player because you know something these characters don't. The hero of Ferelden didn't just disappear. After the events of Origins, I chose to go through the Illuvian Mirror with Morrigan.
Indeed.
And Inquisition goes a step further by carrying over Dragon Age 2 as well.
Form up! I'm with you!
Your previous protagonist Hawk returns to help the Inquisition take the fight to Corypheus. I think that's sick as hell.
Corypheus is mine.
But replaying the series back to back also made me appreciate one of the biggest challenges of making a choice-driven RPG like Dragon Age, where choices carry over between games. Every major decision creates more branches for the developers to account for. Back in Origins, Alistair could become king, remain a Grey Warden, he could die, or Loghain could take his place.
Great.
Every one of those outcomes is another version of the world the developers and designers have to support in future games. That's why so many choices end up forgotten about or acknowledged through dialogue, codex entries, or brief cameos instead of huge story events.
Make her bless the rule of our King Alistair.
So when Inquisition gives me the option to sacrifice Hawk, I can't help but think about the knock-on effect this choice will create. If Hawk can be dead in one player's world and alive in another, it becomes much harder to build a future story around that character.
Ha! Exactly!
That's just the reality of branching choices in game design. Every major decision makes the web of possibilities a little bigger, a little more complicated, and a little more expensive to support. Which is why I really appreciate the moments where Inquisition does go that extra mile. Knowing how much work must have gone into accounting for everyone's different world states makes those payoffs even more satisfying.
You shall be seeing a great deal more of me.
Seeing Morrigan return from Origins, along with the son she had with the hero of Ferelden, was just really cool to see. These huge payoffs multiple games later are exactly why I love Dragon Age. I wish more RPGs allowed you to carry over your saves and choices across the series like this.
It's impressive.
So throughout the game, you'll need to spend the Inquisition's power to unlock the next major story mission. The problem is, you earn that power by accomplishing things in the open world, and I've got pretty mixed feelings about Inquisition's approach to that. A lot of the open world feels like busy work. You're claiming camps, closing rifts, collecting shards, and ticking things off what feels like an endless checklist of copy-paste activities. There are also these constellation puzzles scattered throughout the world, and personally, I just found them frustrating. They weren't satisfying to solve, they just felt like another series of things on the map to work through.
Well, this is grim.
That said, it's not all terrible. One thing I really like is stumbling across a dragon that's completely out of my league. There was one moment where I found a dragon in the distance absolutely destroying a giant. Moments like that make the world feel dangerous and alive.
You're the dragon expert. What do we do now?
Don't get killed by either of them.
You also have access to mounts to help traverse the open world. There are actually a surprising number of different mounts to collect, but I found them pretty slow and clunky. Most of the time I just stuck with travelling on foot rather than spending time mounting up to just then move slightly faster. But I came to appreciate mounts when traversing some of the later, huge, less complicated areas.
Yeah.
The world itself does look gorgeous though. I love some of the early snowy environments and weather effects. There's a strong technical visual fidelity. I was surprised to notice little attention to detail in things like my staff physically colliding with the environment as I walked around. Unfortunately, some of the side content feels like it came from a much older era of RPGs. You've got classic quests like collecting 10 ram meat for some random NPC, or slowly escorting a ram back to a farmer. These are the kind of fetch quests I'd expect from a 20-year-old MMO.
Thank you. I appreciate you finding her, and I'll see to it that this never happens again.
And the problem is, the AI and pathing isn't always great. Escorting this ram was especially frustrating when it kept getting stuck on the environment. I think that's one of the problems when games move towards larger open worlds. The bigger the world gets, the more opportunities there are for things to go wrong. Companion AI can be pretty rough. They'll sometimes get stuck somewhere when combat starts, or they'll just completely get in your way, like trying to cross this wooden beam. Even during dialogue scenes, my party members would sometimes just start wandering around and completely break the immersion.
There are too many hills in these parts, good places for raiders and bandits to gather.
And speaking of dialogue, one of my criticisms with the previous game was the new dialogue wheel. It felt like conversations became less about choosing what your character would actually say, and more about following the icons. Inquisition does give you the option to turn these dialogue icons off, which sounds like a great solution, but the problem is it doesn't really change the system underneath. You can still tell that the top right option is always the friendly response, while the bottom right option is the more negative or aggressive one. You're still making a choice based on the tone you're expecting, rather than the actual words your character is going to say. I still think Origins handled this much better. Having the full dialogue options laid out made it feel like you were actually deciding what your character would say, rather than picking a personality type.
That's extraordinary.
Okay, I want to pivot to Inquisition's companions. One thing I like is that we still have the agency to just not recruit a lot of these characters. You choose whether to let these companions be a part of your journey or not. I think Inquisition has a really good selection of companions overall, although I do wish some of the advisors like Cullen and Liliana were also available as party members. They already had so much history and personality from the previous games, and I would have loved to have them by my side through regular gameplay.
I agree.
But I still ended up really enjoying this cast, and there was still banter to go about.
So, who do you think is the toughest? Josephine, Liliana, or Cassandra?
I'm right here, you know.
So I'm going to rank my top 3 personal favourite companions just purely for fun, nothing serious. At number 3, I'm going to say Cassandra, the main tank and defender of my group, and she's kind of perfect for that role. She comes across as strong, but at times cold, dry and intimidating, but slowly opens up and reveals herself to be more compassionate on the inside and a bit complex. There's a few moments that really sold me on Cassandra. It's when you find out she's secretly into Varric's romance books, but she's too embarrassed to admit it.
Whatever you do, don't tell Varric.
And there's this bit where we've got to go into this fancy ball and dance. Not my kind of thing. I can relate with Cassandra, who's not enjoying it.
This ball is a waste of time.
Cassandra is a strong female character, but one well written. That strength and toughness doesn't come at the cost of her personality, flaws and insecurities that make her feel like a real person. Up next at number 2 is one of my returning favourites, Varric. I really enjoy getting to explore more of his personal story this time round, and we finally get to meet Bianca, his former lover who his iconic crossbow is named after.
Bianca Davry, at your service.
Their relationship couldn't last, and Bianca has since built a life of her own with a family. I genuinely felt bad for Varric. Looking back, it kinda recontextualizes every moment throughout the series where he talks about Bianca.
She's a beauty. Isn't that right, sweetheart?
He's only at number 2 because I think he's slightly toned down compared to Dragon Age 2. He still has the wit and charm that made him so likeable, but he doesn't quite steal every scene the way that he did in that game.
I know I need to do better. I'm sorry.
But I think this time, my personal favourite would have to go with the newcomer, Iron Bull.
That's what I like to hear.
He's just a genuinely likeable guy, and he consistently grew on me over the course of the game. He's funny and charismatic, but underneath all that is someone who's constantly balancing loyalty to the Qunari and loyalty to the people he's come to care about. What I respect about Iron Bull is just how much of a people person he is. He can read everyone in the room, adapt to whoever he's talking to, and always seems to know exactly what to say. He was my primary source of banter this time round because he's just so much fun to have in the party. He has some of the funniest dialogue in the game, and I love how excited he gets whenever it's time to fight a dragon.
Nice! To dragons!
So yeah, I like that they brought back some of the RPG mechanics and tactical depth that Dragon Age 2 had stripped away. I especially appreciated the return of the tactical camera, which makes directing your party in those tougher fights much easier.
I know, right?
I played as a mage this time round. I started out as a fire mage, and I have to admit it was pretty satisfying throwing up walls of fire that didn't just burn enemies, but sent them fleeing in fear, while planting fire mines that could obliterate anything that wandered too close. There was one moment where I left a fire mine setting on the battlefield, forgot all about it, and when I came back a few minutes later, a rabbit ran over it and blew itself up. which is kind of badass. While I started out focusing on fire magic, I eventually branched out into ice and lightning as well. I really like that a lot of the passive bonuses aren't locked to a single element. You can mix and match abilities from different skill trees, letting you create some fun hybrid builds, which to me is the hallmark of a really good skill tree. In fact, these might be the best skill trees in the series. But I actually prefer how they're visually presented in Dragon Age 2, seeing every skill laid out on one clean screen made planning your build much easier. I imagine Inquisition's approach of only showing one skill tree at a time is designed to be less intimidating for newcomers. Maybe seeing everything at once might have been a little overwhelming. I played through Inquisition's 3 DLC as well. There wasn't quite enough here for a separate video, so I'm going to rank them from weakest to strongest. In third place is The Descent. As the name suggests, we're heading back into the Deep Roads alongside a group of dwarves to investigate a series of earthquakes and fight our way through plenty of darkspawn. I immediately recognised one of our dwarf companions, Ren, because he's voiced by David Hayter, the voice of Solid Snake.
That's the last of those darkspawn.
I always like the idea of returning to the Deep Roads again and getting more of that badass Dragon Age lore, and we go even further past the Deep Roads, introducing the Titans, along with a lost race of hostile dwarves. That said, the gameplay started to drag a little. It becomes a little repetitive with long stretches of fighting the same enemies over and over, so while I enjoyed some of the lore, it ended up being my least favourite of the 3.
Wise words.
Second favourite goes to the Jaws of Hakon. This one is the most content rich, feeling more like an extension of the main game with a whole new open world region to explore. You're investigating what happened to a previous Inquisitor, so there's some pretty interesting lore. The new region can be beautiful at times, and we get to learn more about the Avar, their mountain culture, beliefs, and gods.
Goat-kissing, blood-drinking, Hackenite chicken crabs!
My only real criticism is that it leans into the same open world formula that I was already getting a little tired of in the main game. We're back to solving constellation puzzles, and while the final battle against Hakon is a gnarly dragon fight, it didn't really stand out much from the other dragons I'd already fought. Thankfully, the story was interesting enough that I didn't mind it nearly as much.
If you say so.
While my number one favourite goes to Trespasser, and one of the reasons this is my personal favourite, it takes place years after the main story, giving you the chance to reunite with your old crew and see what everyone's been up to. I really appreciated this bit, and it was great getting that final catch up with my crew and seeing where their lives ended up.
Oh, this is gonna be fun. The old team together again to kick some ass.
I especially loved seeing Varric's journey come full circle, becoming the Viscount of Kirkwall, the major city from Dragon Age 2.
I might need to sit down. You're the ruler of Kirkwall now, all of it.
After that, Trespasser shifts into a more combat-focused DLC. You travel through some Alluvian mirrors, explore some crazy environments, and fight your way through Hordes of Kunari. It sets up the next game, and there's a bit of closure for Inquisition that I really appreciated.
I'm sorry. And we are almost out of time.
So bottom line, I think Dragon Age Inquisition is good. I think the story is good. I like how we have a central villain this time with Corypheus returning. I love the attention to detail and how so many of your previous decisions are represented here. I think the cast of characters is good. Very happy to see a lot of returning characters. But it feels a little toned down compared to the previous 2 games, and my biggest criticism with Inquisition remains the open world. I really enjoyed the main story for those 20 hours or so. I was often on the edge of my seat. But I also spent nearly 50 hours working through the open world activities. I had some fun, but after a while it started to feel like work. I like how you can encounter these dragons in the environment, and you come back in endgame to finish them off. And hell, it's a pretty cool experience fighting a dragon, but once you fought one of them, you fought them all. They function very much the same. The fetch quests, collectibles, and checklist style objectives really drag down the pacing. Personally, I'd rather have seen more of the core Dragon Age experience because that's what feels special and unique to the series, and that's what I'm here for. The open world elements, on the other hand, they're things I've already experienced in so many other games, and unfortunately, Inquisition's open world doesn't quite do enough to separate itself from the rest. If you enjoy the open world, that's fantastic, but personally, I think the devs made the right decision to do away with the open world bits in the next game.
How is this a game?
Once I've played the entire series again, then I'll tell you where I'd rank Inquisition in the series. Overall, I had a good time. Okay, one last Dragon Age game to revisit with Veilguard in the future. In the meanwhile, I've got Final Fantasy VII Remake 6 years later on my previous Dragon Age videos. Have a good one.